Kevin Wade. Thanks for joining us on First.
Michelle, again, it's so nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to start off the way we've begun the others. If you have
Sure.
30 seconds to tell voters who you are, what would your pitch be?
Well, it's not a pitch, it's a description. I grew up in a factory town, went to work in a steel mill 3 days after high school. When I wasn't in the mill, I was working at school at night, earned my engineering degree, came to Delaware, started a business, married a woman who's been my wife for 37 years now. Every good thing in my life has happened in Delaware. I tell my audiences I wasn't lucky enough to be born here, but I got here as quick as I could.
Well, I understand you do not see Mr. Smink as your opponent, but he did mention that he has a master's in international relations and he has more experience than you. What's your response to that?
He's a fine man. I celebrate him standing up. I wish we had more patriots who stood up to try to make good change in this country. I have an electrical engineering degree. I've run a business for, well, since I was 29 years old, so that's a few years. I have been around the world. I was in Israel recently working, actually standing with IDF troops at the Gaza frontier. I was down at the southern border. I've been to Asia on work. I've been to South America in business. I've learned to speak Spanish in Mexico. I have my own international relations experience, you might say, Michelle.
So you see Senator Coons as your opponent, you were telling me.
Exactly.
And, you know, I understand he has made it a point that he's reached across the aisle to pretty much stop the gridlock in Washington. What's your response? Will you handle?
My response, Michelle, is if you like your health insurance, you can keep your health insurance, period. I lost my health insurance coverage in my business because of Obamacare. I didn't hear Senator Coons speak up. He didn't reach out to me. Now, in fact, Senator Coons votes with Harry Reid 97% of the time. Now, your viewers may not know, but Harry Reid is the senator from Nevada. And the interests of the people of Nevada, which is a desert state with a gambling industry, have little to do with the interests of the people in Delaware. He has not been bipartisan. He hasn't reached out. He's reached up to get instructions from Harry Reid, quite frankly. It's my intention to be an independent voice for people across the political spectrum in Delaware. We need Delaware to have their own voice in Washington, and that's my purpose.
Okay, so making sure you speak up for Delawareans. 2 years ago, you made the run against Tom Carper. Now, I understand Delaware is your focus, and you've told me that foreign policy isn't, but what should U.S. Senate's role be in terms of Obama policy?
The purpose of the U.S. Senate is somewhat unique. They provide advice and consent to the President of the United States in his selection of high-ranking officials, the signing and confirmation of treaties. If you take a look at the fires raging around the world and across this country, including in Ferguson, Missouri, including the violence in Dover, the violence here, the flood of heroin through our streets, young people who can't get work, broken borders. It's all falling down in every direction. We need to provide the president solutions. We need to nudge the president to find solutions. Senator Coons isn't. Senator Coons doesn't speak to the problems this country faces and the failed leadership we have in Washington.
So let's hold that thought. So the economy was a big part of the debate in 2012.
As it still is, Michelle.
What's your focus going forward, just briefly before we wrap up?
It's to put Americans first, American families first, American kids first. There's an 18-year-old coming out of high school. He has no working experience, and he has to compete against a 35-year-old illegal alien who has 20 hard-working years of experience, who's willing to work for less than the minimum wage. That's wrong. We have to make jobs for our own first. We have to be America in order to be America, Michelle. And quickly, we have problems with that southern border. I mean, if we have a camera, I want to show you. I was in Del Rio, Texas, just a few nights ago, speaking to a rancher whose young daughter found a brand new 10 rial note from the Bank of Oman on their property. A brand new note, 10 rials from the Bank of Oman.
Wow.
We don't know where the person is who was carrying it or why he's here.
Okay.
But something's wrong.
Well,
and I'll talk about that.
Okay, well, I thank you for being here, Kevin Wade, and hopefully everything goes well.
Carl Smink is also in the running in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. So we put the question to you as well. If you had 30 seconds with Delaware voters to really make your pitch for why they should vote for you, what would you say if you had 30 seconds to talk to them?
Well, we have a primary coming up. So, of course, my opponent is Kevin Wade. And I would say, vote for me. I have the experience and I have the qualifications. I have many more qualifications than he does. Kevin's a good man. He's an engineer and he's a good guy. But he doesn't have the number of degrees I have. He doesn't have the experience in the Industrial College of the Armed Forces, and he probably does not have a master's degree in international relations. And in addition to the academics, I have 35 years of experience in and around the Washington area working with the various agencies, sometimes as a consultant, sometimes as an employee.
So what's your motivation for running? Why are you in this race?
I was told to do it. I cried out one Sunday morning and when I was sitting in front of my television watching Joel, and I said, "Can't you guys do something?" And instantly I got a response that said, "You do something. We want you to run for United States Senate." Why me at this late date? It took us a long time to get you ready.
And who's telling you this?
The Holy Trinity, all three of them were there. And I wanted to fall on my face. I could not. And talk about fear and admonition of the Lord. Yes, I don't want to do anything the rest of my life but serve those guys.
So your campaign platform reads sort of like the conservative playbook. Repeal Affordable Care Act. You want to get the U.S. out of the UN. You want the Bible and the Constitution as the primary sources for governance of the United States. Are these issues you think will resonate with the majority of Delaware voters?
It sure did at the state fair. I didn't sit in the booth and wait for people to come to me. I went out and worked the Midway. I'd ask people if they were Delaware voters. If they responded positively, I would tell them who I was, what I was running for, and tell them that I had a Christ-centered campaign and that I was pro-gun. And had they any other questions, most of the time they would burst out laughing and say, "No, you answered our questions, you have our vote." And we're talking about 95% of the people would respond in that way.
What's your main issue? What's your focus of your campaign? What do you want to do if elected?
I want to stop the oppression that's coming out of the White House. Get this country back on a lawful basis again, where we have a rule of law, and people have their freedoms. They're guaranteed their freedoms by the Constitution. What
freedoms don't they have under the president?
Well, they can't pick their own doctor. They're more and more things are being taken away from them. You said, what do they not have? Well, they don't have security anymore. We have a great big national security agency, Homeland Security, whatever you want to call it, and there's less security than ever. This great big agency has a lot of ammunition and tanks and whatnot. Why? We have an armed forces. We should be using those. I believe in a strong Army and Navy, Air Force, strong military, but we don't need arms at every level in all of the Homeland Security agencies. SWAT teams in the, I don't know if the IRS has one, but that would be an extreme as far as I was concerned.
And finally, a lot of work in Washington, a lot of the word you hear is gridlock and things just not able to get done. How well do you think you would be able to work with members on the other side to get things done, to compromise and move things forward?
Getting things done doesn't always mean compromise. And I'm very hesitant to engage in something that's going to erode freedoms from our people.
All right, Carl Smink, thanks so much for joining us. A Republican running in the primary September 9th for U.S. Senate. Really appreciate you being there with us on First.